told you that millions of people wake up every day and realize they can't actually remember being a child. Not just fuzzy memories, not just forgotten details, but entire years gone, as if someone reached into their mind and erased the first chapter of their life. And the strangest part? They have no idea why. It usually happens in a moment you're not expecting. You're at a dinner party and someone asks, "What was your childhood like?" And you open your mouth to answer and nothing comes. Or maybe you're scrolling through old family photos and you see this kid, this small person who's supposedly you, and you feel absolutely nothing. No recognition, no warmth, just the weird sensation of looking at a stranger. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe you're watching a movie where someone recalls a vivid memory from when they were 8 and you think, wait, can people actually do that? For some of you watching this, you've always known something was off. You've sat through countless conversations where friends tell elaborate stories from kindergarten, from their 10th birthday, from family vacations when they were 7, stories with details, colors, emotions, the smell of their grandmother's kitchen, the exact words their father said. And you've learned to fake it, to nod along, to laugh at the right moments. But inside, there's this quiet panic, this voice that whispers, "Why don't I have this? What's wrong with me?" Here's what nobody tells you. Nothing is wrong with you, but something might have happened to you, something your brain decided you weren't ready to hold on to. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain, because this isn't just bad memory. Everyone experiences something called childhood amnesia. It's normal to have few memories before age 3 or 4. Your brain is still developing. The structures that create and store long-term memories, specifically the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, they're not fully online yet. But what we're talking about is different. This is when you can't remember much or anything from ages 5, 7, 10, even 12. Years when your brain should have been recording. Years when other people have clear, detailed memories. So, what happened? Your brain has a prioritization system. When you're in survival mode, when you're experiencing chronic stress, emotional pain, or trauma, your brain makes a choice. It says, we can either process this experience and store it as a memory, or we can use all our energy to keep this child functioning right now. And it chooses now. Always now. Think of your brain like a phone with limited battery. When you're in danger, real or perceived, your system goes into power-saving mode. All the non-essential functions get shut down, and memory formation, that's non-essential. Staying alert, reading the room, monitoring for threats, that's essential. There's also something called state-dependent memory. Memories formed in one emotional state are easier to recall when you're in that same state. If your childhood was dominated by fear, shame, or numbness, and your adult life is relatively safe and stable, there's a disconnect. You literally can't access those memories from where you're standing. No. Here's a story that might sound familiar. There's a man I'll call David. He's 38, successful career, good friends. From the outside, he's fine. But David has maybe 6 memories from before he turned 13. 6 in 13 years. When he tells people this, they ask if something terrible happened. He says no, and he means it. There was no obvious abuse, no single incident he can point to. His parents didn't hit him, they fed him, they kept a roof over their head. But here's what David does remember: the feeling of walking on eggshells. His father's silence that could stretch for days, heavy and punishing. His mother's mood swings. Loving 1 hour, cruel the next. The constant sense that he needed to be smaller, quieter, less. He remembers not the events, but the atmosphere. Like living underwater, like the air itself was thick with something unspoken and dangerous. This is what we miss when we talk about childhood trauma. We look for the big, obvious things, the headlines, but for many people, it wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 small things. Death by 1,000 cuts. It was never knowing which parent you'd get when you came home from school. It was the criticism that came disguised as concern. It was being told your feelings were too much, too dramatic, not real. It was watching your parents' unhappy marriage and knowing somehow that you were supposed to fix it, but you didn't know how. Your brain didn't record those years because, in a very real way, you weren't safe enough to be fully present in them. Here's something that will make this click. Even if your mind can't remember, your body does. You know how you can walk into a room and suddenly feel anxious for no reason? Or how a certain tone of voice makes your chest tighten before you've even processed what was said? Or how you can't stand the smell of a specific cologne and you don't know why, but it makes you want to run? That's your body remembering. Scientists call these implicit memories. They're stored not in the part of your brain that handles stories and sequences, the hippocampus, but in deeper, older parts, the amygdala, which handles fear, the cerebellum, which handles physical responses, your nervous system itself. You might not remember the day your father screamed at you when you were 6, but your body remembers. So now, 30 years later, when someone raises their voice even slightly, your heart rate spikes. Your muscles tense. You feel that familiar urge to disappear. You might not remember the birthday party where you felt profoundly alone, but your body remembers. So now you get anxious every year as your birthday approaches and you don't know why. This is why people who can't remember their childhood often struggle with things they can't explain. Hypervigilance, difficulty trusting people, feeling like they're constantly waiting for something bad to happen. These aren't character flaws, they're not overthinking, they're echoes. Memories without images, pain without a story. Your body has been trying to tell you something your whole life. Maybe it's time to listen. Let's talk about dissociation, because this is probably what happened to your memories. Imagine you're a child and something is happening that's too much for you to handle. Maybe it's scary, maybe it's painful, maybe it just makes you feel utterly powerless. Your brain does something extraordinary. It separates you from the experience. You're there, but you're not there. You're watching yourself from above, or you're somewhere else entirely in your mind, a safer place you've created. Time feels weird, stretchy. You feel numb, foggy, like you're moving through a dream. This is dissociation, and it's one of the most powerful survival tools your brain has. In that moment, it's a gift. It's what keeps a child from breaking completely. But here's the cost. When you dissociate during an experience, you don't form a coherent memory of it. It's like trying to record a video while the camera is turned off. The event happens, but there's no file to retrieve later. For some children, this becomes automatic. The brain learns, when things are overwhelming, we leave. And if your childhood was chronically overwhelming, if dissociation became your default state, then years of your life were lived in that fog, present in body, absent in mind. So you don't remember not because you're blocking it out necessarily. You don't remember because, in a neurological sense, you were never fully there to record it in the first place. Your mind protected you the only way it knew how. There's a loneliness in this that's hard to describe. You're grieving something most people don't recognize as a loss. There's no funeral for missing memories, no sympathy cards. No one brings you casseroles when you realize you can't remember learning to ride a bike or your first day of school. In fact, when you try to talk about it, people often say things that hurt. You're lucky you don't remember. At least you can move on. Why dwell on the past? But it's not about dwelling. It's about foundation. Your childhood is supposed to be the ground you build your life on. It's where you learned who you were, who you could trust, what the world was like. And when that's missing, you feel unmoored, like you're building a house in midair. There's also this strange doubling. You know you were a child once. There's evidence, but that child feels like a completely different person. Sometimes when you look at photos, you feel sad for that kid. Like there's someone you want to protect, but you can't connect them to yourself. There's no thread between then and now. And maybe the hardest part, you wonder what else was taken from you. What joy, what innocence, what sense of safety. You wonder who you might have been if you'd been allowed to keep your memories, if you'd been allowed to just be a kid. This grief is real, it's valid, and it deserves to be witnessed. If you're watching this and recognizing yourself, I want you to know you don't need to recover every memory to heal. Recovery doesn't mean remembering, it means integrating. It means understanding that the child you were is still part of you, even if you can't see them clearly. So, what can you do? First, trust what your body is telling you. If certain situations make you anxious, if certain people feel unsafe, if you have reactions that seem bigger than the moment, believe yourself. Your body is showing you what your mind can't access. Second, find patterns. You may not remember specific events, but you can notice themes. When do you feel small? When do you shut down? When do you feel that old familiar fear? These are breadcrumbs. Follow them. Third, create safety now. Your childhood lacked it. That's likely why you can't remember. But you're not a child anymore. You get to build something different. Surround yourself with people who are consistent, who see you, who don't make you shrink. Fourth, consider therapy, specifically trauma-informed therapy. Someone who understands that you can heal from what you don't remember. Someone who won't push you to dig up every buried memory, but will help you work with what's present now. And finally, this is important, start creating memories you want to keep. Intentional ones, beautiful ones. This doesn't erase what's gone, but it gives you something new to hold on to. You are not your missing memories. You are what you're building in spite of them. The child you were is still inside you, not in the memories you can't access, but in the strength it took to survive, in the resilience that got you here, in the very fact that you're still searching for answers, still trying to understand you were there. Even if you can't remember it, you lived it, you survived it. And that child, wherever they are in the fog, they would be proud of who you became. The vanished years don't have to define you. They're part of your story, but they're not the whole story. You get to write what comes next. And that's yours to remember.